We are going to break down today narcissistic fathers, especially covert ones. They are masters of invisible wounds. They may not hit. Some of them may not even yell, and yet their actions are laced with conditions or manipulations that can really affect their children, not only while they're growing up, but well on to their adult lives. So we are going to break it down today. We're going to look at what covert narcissistic fathers do to their children. We're going to highlight the coping skills that children developed as a means of pure survival and how those coping skills haunt them in their adult life. So that being said, let's dive in. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner and the founder of the School of Transformation, which is where I meet live on Zoom every week and I do the inner work with survivors from all over the world of childhood trauma together. Here on my YouTube channel, we talk about what healing is about, what it looks like, the symptoms of unhealed trauma. But in the School of Transformation, we do the inner healing together. So if you're ready to take the next step, make sure you join me weekly on Zoom. Let's start by contrasting what a healthy father is for a child, right? Our father is like the first compass for our nervous system to be able to detect what's safe and what's not. So for example, let's say a little girl is with her father riding her bike or learning to ride her bike, and then she falls. Right? A healthy father runs over, kneels down, looks at her knee, gives it a kiss, and may say something like, "That must have hurt. I'm right here." So she feels the pain, she cries, she experiences the emotion, but she doesn't feel it alone. That's what a healthy father does. They give you a nervous system blueprint for protection, presence, and groundedness. That calm masculine energy teaches a child, I feel safe, I matter, and I'm not alone. So it's not about being perfect, it's about being emotionally available. Teaching a child that their emotions are safe, that they matter, their emotions matter, their perception matters, and that they're not alone when things are overwhelming. When a child experiences that good enough parenting, they internalize that and they know how to be with their own emotions. They know how to live in the belief, I matter, I'm safe. And they carry that into their relationships, into the world, into their friendships, into their marriage, into their parenting, into their work environment. And that sounds really lovely. Those that experience that, congratulations, right? For those that didn't, like myself, our map into the world was full of traps, manipulation, confusion, especially if you had a covert narcissistic father. Okay, so let's flip the script and look at how a covert narcissistic father treats a child. Let's imagine a small child, 3-4 years old, draws something, colors something, and brings it to their father. A covert narcissistic father will do one of two things. They will either completely ignore that child and act as if that child doesn't even exist. And if there's another child in the family that's the golden child, at that moment, they might highlight something the other child did that makes no sense. They might not have even done anything, but they'll suddenly get this compliment to the golden child. And here's the other child just like trying to get some kind of recognition, trying to make their father happy in some way, shape, or form, and getting completely ignored. So they'll either do that or they'll look up. They won't yell. It won't be an obvious pain-inflicting behavior, and yet it inflicts so much pain. They'll criticize that drawing. Oh, that's the wrong color. You went out of the lines. You didn't do well enough, is the implication. And so the child learns on a subconscious level that love is something I have to earn, or I'm only safe and connected and loved if I impress him, please him, or make him proud. So the reality is that covert narcissistic fathers, they are masters of invisible wounds. And so the child learns to shapeshift, to twist themselves into whatever version of themselves gets a crumb of approval. One of the awful parts of having a covert narcissistic father is that because it's covert, because the abuse is subtle, it flies outside the radar of what most people see. And the fact that a covert narcissistic father acts one way behind closed doors and a whole different way when in front of other people. You wind up with the father that everyone loves and is jealous of, except you. And on top of that, you don't ever get the chance to grow into an authentic person because you're so busy shape-shifting, walking on eggshells, and trying to find safety. So let's look at how what happened to you in childhood can haunt you in your adult life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever caught yourself overthinking a simple text that you were going to send to a loved one or someone you cared about? Or feeling responsible for someone else's emotions, even when it's not yours to carry? That anxiety is actually your nervous system saying, I remember what it felt like to disappoint someone who made me feel very small and as if I didn't matter. And so again, rather than growing up with personality traits, when you've had a covert narcissistic father, you have coping skills, survival skills, like fawning, right? I'm going to suppress myself to make my narcissistic father happy because then I can feel connected and safe. Or you might go into freeze. The narcissistic father gets mad at things that don't make sense. You go left, they get mad, you go right. But then they get mad, so you stand still, which is shutting down emotionally in an attempt to avoid an attack. Or we become hypervigilant. We have to know every micro expression of our narcissistic father so that we can try to stay 2 steps ahead and feel some kind of safety. And so we're hypervigilant. We may identify as being an empath because we had to feel what others were feeling in an attempt to stay safe. And the crazy thing with trauma is these things may have happened when we were children. We're adults now. Decades have passed, and yet it can feel like our narcissistic father is in the same room with us, even if they're not in our life anymore. And here's one of the hardest truths that I had to come face to face with as a trauma survivor myself. And that's the reality that unhealed trauma doesn't stay in just one generation. If we, as survivors of narcissistic abuse, don't do the inner work to heal, we can accidentally pass down the patterns that we lived in childhood. Maybe we left that environment. Maybe we repeated it in a marriage unconsciously. And maybe we've left that marriage. So our childhood is over, the adult relationship is over, but we might have children. And if we don't learn how to break the patterns that were ingrained in us when we were children, we can repeat them. For example, we might suddenly hear ourselves sounding exactly like our parent, hearing ourselves say the things that they said, act in ways that they acted without even realizing it. Again, it's not because we're bad, but it's because we might be stuck in a trauma response. And so if we have a strong fight response, and that fight response helped us to survive our childhood, it might come out when we're parenting. Or we do the opposite. We go so far the opposite way that we treat our children like, I don't matter, only you matter. We overgive, we over apologize, we burn out, and we can accidentally train our children to live in the belief, I matter, mom doesn't, dad doesn't, which might replicate a narcissistic codependent relationship with our children. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and he said something. He said, Michele, I'm looking at my life and I'm looking at how I am. And as much as I know our childhood was screwed up, he's like, there comes this point where I need to take responsibility. And so there's this fine line, right? Where sometimes we have to be careful, where people will make us feel like, oh, just get over it now. Or we just stay stuck focusing on how screwed up our narcissistic family system was. The balance is about validating both. And I told him, it's like, what if you can say, yes, my life was screwed up, and I'm learning to break those patterns for my future generations. And so that's where we start shifting. We start shifting into learning about ourselves and learning about how to break the patterns. No amount of learning about the narcissistic father will heal us. It will validate us, and it is important information. Please understand, I'm not telling you to not learn about the narcissistic father. I know with myself, until I understood narcissistic abuse, I didn't know how to heal because I didn't really understand what happened to me, what was wrong with me. And what I found was that what was wrong with me was that I was born into a narcissistic family system. And those dynamics affected my nervous system. Understanding the narcissist, understanding their traits and their behaviors helped me to learn how to identify them, helped me to become more conscious and more aware of what others were doing and why, instead of living unconsciously and getting sucked into patterns and relationships that weren't healthy. But even after all of that knowledge, there came this point where I realized I need to learn how to embody healing in a way that helps me to break this pattern for my children, break this pattern for my relationships with others, and with my relationship with myself. Our nervous system can find these sneaky ways that make us think we're healing, yet we're staying stuck. And one of those ways is what it attaches to safety. In childhood, safety meant not being authentic and making others happy, right? We got stuck. That strategy worked, but it kept us stuck. It didn't allow us to be authentic. Sometimes as we're healing, our body, our survival brain will make us think safety means learning about the narcissist. And so we're learning and learning and learning about them. And what we're doing is we are learning, but we learn from the neck up. We learn with our mind. And the trauma, the lack of safety that we got in childhood, that's in our body. And no amount of learning, cognitive learning, is going to help it to sink down to a body level. At some point, we realize it's not that we need more information, but rather we need integration, learning how to help this information come down into the body. And that's what I help people to do in the School of Transformation. Here we talk about trauma. We talk about narcissistic abuse, narcissistic family systems. In the School of Transformation, we look at how it affected us, how it's still affecting us on a body level, and how we can begin healing on a body level, creating the inner safety that we should have gotten in childhood. We learn how to build the capacity for it now. In that way, we don't just end the abuse and the trauma, we heal from it. So if you're looking to dive deeper, I want to invite you to come join us live weekly on Zoom in the School of Transformation, where we help trauma survivors move from just understanding their pain to embodying safety. We teach tools that gently help your nervous system unlearn survival mode and remember who you were before the trauma. Or maybe that help you introduce yourself to you, the real you, instead of who the trauma turned you into. That's the heart of somatic healing, because you can't think your way to safety. You have to feel it in your bones.